Hi, welcome to our fourth week in our block. This week we are focusing on our arms and our shoulders. So in class this week we've been using small hand weights for those who want to. If you haven't got any at home, then you can follow along without. You will need a small rolled up towel just to help open up through the thoracic area like we did last week. And we'll just get going. So either with or without those hand weights, come to rest in your Pilates stance with those feet hip width, nice and soft knees, and just drawing up through a neutral pelvis. Squeeze those transverse abdominals, lengthen up through the spine. Take those shoulders down. If you've got hand weights in your hands, just let the weight of those weights draw those shoulders down, taking the crown of the head in the opposite direction. Taking an inhale here, remembering those nice long breaths into the rib cage. And with an exhale, we're going to look over towards our left-hand side. Inhaling to the front and looking over in the other direction. Inhaling to front. We're going to do one more each side. And then this time on our exhale, we're going to take ear to shoulder. Inhaling to draw up. And this time we're going to go over ear to shoulder, and we're going to take a breath or two here. And we're just going to take the opposite shoulder down in the other direction, squeezing it down, enjoying that stretch, and using an inhale to come back up to center. Exhale over to the other side. Again, drawing that opposite shoulder down just to deepen that stretch. And inhaling back up to center. Taking an inhale here as we start to lift those arms. And an exhale, pressing them down. Taking that nice, slow, controlled motion. Taking them slightly behind you, squeezing that core. Inhaling up. And exhaling down. And then if you're able, beginning to turn these into arm circles. So coming up and squeezing down. Again, don't let the weight of the weights drag those arms down quickly. Control that motion. If you haven't got weights in your hands, same thing, create that resistance through the air. Don't let the arms just drop. And then starting to go in the opposite direction, taking that inhale to come up, lengthening through the body. Exhale to press those arms down, really squeeze through the core muscles. And as we're going through these big arm movements, really have awareness of that spine and the trunk of the body, keeping stability through there. We're going to take the arms forwards as if we're holding a tray. Elbows are tight in towards our waist. Take an inhale here, and with an exhale, just rotate those hands out, keeping the elbows tight in, and take a little squeeze of those shoulder blades behind you. Inhale to come back into center with control. Again, taking those arms wide, squeeze the shoulder blades. Inhaling in. Aiming for 3 more of these. Really find that extra squeeze open. Control that close. Final time. And take the arms up towards a cactus position. Taking an inhale here with an exhale. We're going to keep those elbows at shoulder height if we can. If you've got any blood pressure issues, then take them a little bit lower. Otherwise, we're keeping them high and we're squeezing shut. Trying to squeeze with the elbows rather than just the hands. And inhaling to take those arms wide. Back to that cactus position. Exhaling to squeeze. Inhaling to take them wide. And as you take them wide, find a little squeeze of the shoulder blades behind you. Find that opening through the upper back. controlling the midsection. And if shoulder mobility allows, we're going to just add in an overhead press. So we're going to inhale to take those arms wide. Exhale to draw them up. Again, use the slow, controlled movements of Pilates. Try not to rush it. We're going to work much harder by taking it slow and controlled. Doing our body lots of good. Taking it up and over, pressing up. Finding that resistance, especially if you've not got those weights. Really remind yourself to take it slowly and draw those arms through the air like you're drawing them through treacle. Creating some resistance for your body. We're going to go 2 more times, taking it over, squeezing it shut. Last one. If you need to have a little break, let those arms come down. If not, we're just going to inhale here and exhale to twist towards the windows. If those arms need a break, feel free to bring them in towards the sternum or down towards the hips. Otherwise, we're keeping them high and wide. Taking that twist, keeping the hips facing the front of the room. 2 more each side. Really working into those waist muscles. Try and keep those elbows at shoulder height if you can. It's getting tricky. Starting to tire. Keep those shoulders down, even though the elbows are high. Last time. And we're going to take those arms all the way up if we can manage it. Taking an inhale, and with an exhale, we're going over into a side bend, lifting those ribs nice and high. Inhaling to come back up to center and exhaling over to the other side. We're going to keep going, and as we keep moving from side to side, we're going to really try and take that spine into some flexion, lifting those ribs high and then squeezing the waist to come back. Try not to just collapse into the waist. Try and really lift those top ribs, find a reach and squeeze back up, directing the movement from the waist muscles. Really turning your attention to that core and taking the movement from that center point of the body. 1 more each side if you can. Last one, and then we can take those arms down if you haven't already. And then taking the arms down, we're going straight into a squat. So we're going to take those arms forward, bottom back over the heels, sinking down with your exhale. Inhale to draw up. We're going to squeeze the elbows behind us, bringing those weights in towards the hips. Taking those arms forwards with your exhale. Inhale to draw them in. And really exaggerate your breath so you've got time to feel where the limits of your body are. You might not be able to get quite so low. It's fine to do a much smaller range of movements, so work with what feels right for you. But just elongate those breaths so you can feel that you're really pushing your body as far as it wants to comfortably go. Drawing those elbows back. And on this one, we're going to draw up. Keep those arms there. Keep the hands by the hips. Elbows are back. We're going to squat, but not quite so low. Take control of that core. And then we're just going to elongate those arms. Keep the elbows there. And then bend the hands back in. Pressing back into those triceps. Watch those knees as well. Make sure that they're still coming down directly over the second toe. Don't lose that form. Press those arms back And for the last few, just see if you can get that little bit higher. Take those arms as high as they'll go, really working into those triceps. Try and keep those shoulders down away from the ears. For 3, 2, 1. Oh, squeezing up. We're going to take those weights down if you've got them. And we're just going to go straight into a roll down, taking a lovely big inhale up. We're going to take our tummy button towards the back of our t-shirt, tuck that tailbone under, and roll down one vertebra at a time, trying to find that lift of the ribs that we've really been working on in previous weeks. Coming all the way down and taking a relax. And then instead of rolling straight back up, we're going to use our inhale to find our flat back position that we did last week. Arms are straight down towards the floor. Length from the crown of the head to the tailbone. And we're going to just take some little arm circles. Keep that core squeezed so you've got stability through the body. And just let those shoulder joints just roll out. Using those arms as a pendulum. Finding some movement through the joints. Taking those circles in both directions. And then relaxing back down into that full flex position. As far as feels right for your body. And using an exhale to begin to roll back up again, lifting those ribs nice and high. And rounding up, shoulders are back and down, crown of the head is lifted. We're going to come straight down to the floor, so coming down however suits you, and coming into a lying position on your back with your feet bent. We're going to keep that towel close to hand, coming all the way down, finding your neutral spine position. We're going to take an inhale, and with an exhale, we're going to lift our left leg up to a tabletop position. And we're going to reach our right arm out towards our hip, just lifting it off the floor as if we're going into a 100, but just with one half of the body. And we're just going to practice taking some presses of that arm down. So use your exhale to press down towards the floor, imagining a sprung surface underneath as if you're pressing against a springboard, finding some resistance through that shoulder and down under the armpit, and finding a connection across the body, finding that cross-body stability. For 3, 2, 1. Take that arm down, take the leg down. Take an inhale, and with an exhale, we're going to take those knees over towards the right-hand side. Arms can stay down, they can go wide, or they can come up towards the chest and have a little press together for that extra core connection as the legs come towards the side. This is going to make it harder if your hands aren't in contact with that floor to take those knees back up again. Take an inhale. With an exhale, use that press of the hands to engage the core and come back to center. Take an inhale and an exhale to go to the other side. Take those knees over, squeeze the core so they're going with control. Take that inhale into the stretch. Exhale, press the hands together, squeeze the core, come back to center. Bring those hands back down to the hips if they're not already. And we're going to take our right foot up towards tabletop position. Left arm is coming, floating off the floor, reaching down towards our hips. And we're going to start pressing that hand again, taking that action from the shoulder, drawing the shoulder down as we press down against an imaginary springboard, finding that resistance through the air. Feeling that connection under the armpit. pressing for 3, 2, 1. Take that foot down, take the hand down towards the floor. Take a nice big inhale up. Circle those arms around with an exhale. And we're going to go straight into our 100. So if you're able to get an upper body lift, then do. Otherwise, we're pressing both arms just like we've been doing, finding that resistance through the air, but picking up the pace slightly. So keep those nice long breaths, but the arms are going to move a little bit quicker, but still with that same control and that same focus under the armpits and into the shoulder joint. So we're going to take an inhale and an exhale to float those arms up, both of them this time, letting the upper body follow if it suits you. If not, keep that head down. Get control of those knees, hip width, and we're going to start to press, reaching and engaging under those armpits, keeping that Satsuma-sized gap between the chin and the chest as we pulse those arms and take nice long breaths. And we're aiming for between 3 and 5 breaths here. If that upper body is lifted, see if you can get that extra little lift of that sternum towards the knees. Really work that core even harder. Again, if you're taking any strain into the neck, take that neck down, the head back to the floor at any point. Drawing under those armpits as we pulse. Final exhale. And then coming back to the floor. Again, take a nice big inhale to take those arms up and over. And an exhale to circle them back round down to the hips. We've got another set of our 100 to do. So keep those feet down on the floor, or feel free to lift them to a tabletop position if you'd like to extend a little bit for the second set. We want that real lift of the upper body from the sternum. Try not to put too much strain on the neck. So we're taking an inhale, and with an exhale, we're lifting legs up to tabletop if we're going up to tabletop. Arms are floating, upper body's lifting, and we're going to begin to pulse. So finding whatever position works for you. If you've got those legs lifted, still keep working that sternum up towards the knees. Keep pulling and scooping under those ribs as we pulse those arms. But really finding that draw down from the shoulder and that focus under the armpit area that we had in the first exercise. Again, aiming for 3 to 5 breaths, taking a break whenever you need to, taking the head and neck back down to the mat if you need to, or aiming for one more breath if you can. And then letting those hands be still and just take one foot at a time back to the mat if you're in a tabletop position. Again, taking those arms up and over with your inhale. And this time, send those feet in the opposite direction and just have a full body stretch. Take a couple of breaths here. And then we're going to get ourselves ready for shoulder bridge. So those arms are circling around again, coming down towards the mat, down towards the hips. We're going to bend the feet up quite close towards the bottom, plant them firmly on the floor. I'm just going to make sure I've got some space behind me to take those arms up and over. We're going to start just with that pelvic tilt, taking an inhale and an exhale to tilt that pelvis. Make sure those knees stay hip width. And then coming back down with an inhale, coming all the way down to neutral. Let the tailbone come back to the mat. Exhale, tilting up. Inhale, coming back to the mat. And this might be enough for you just going through this pelvic tilt, but if you want to exaggerate the movement, we're coming all the way up to shoulder bridge. So use that exhale to tilt And then continue to roll up, pushing those hips nice and high, taking control of those ribs. Don't let them flare up towards the ceiling. We're really working into those hips. And then as we roll down, we're taking those ribs back towards the mat. Hips are staying as high as we can for as long as we can. And rolling back down. So carrying on with that roll through the body. And if you want to, you can start to take those arms up and over towards the mat. And then taking them back down. Finding a lovely free-flowing movement through the spine, up into the arms and shoulders. But being careful that taking those arms up and over is not causing the ribs to lift. It might give you a little bit more height through the hips, but really still keep that stability through the core. One more time, floating up. Finding that height at the top. Floating the arms back down as the spine comes back to the mat, one vertebra at a time. We're going up again, but this time we're going to hold at the top. Arms are going straight up towards the ceiling. I'm going to move this towel out of the way. We're going to inhale to take one arm out towards the side, keeping stability through the hips. Exhale to come back to center. And see if I've got enough space on my left-hand side now as I inhale to take my arm down towards the floor. Exhale to come back to center, really keeping stability through those hips. It gets harder as the body tires. Keep pressing through the big toes to help find that lower body connection. Using those toes as your anchor. Don't let the weight of the arm pull the hips from side to side. Keep pressing through the glutes. And you can use your weights for this as well if you've got them. Keep those weights in your hand for a little bit extra challenge. One more each side. Come down earlier if it gets too much. Take that inhale, hips are nice and high, and we're going to exhale to roll back down. Coming all the way back to the mat, drawing those knees in towards the chest and having a little roll from side to side. Just to massage through that lower and mid spine. We're going to go into our double leg stretch next. So I'm going to just move over slightly so I've got a little bit more space for my arms. I'm going to take an inhale to take my arms all the way up and over, really being mindful of those ribs again, just like we were in the shoulder bridge. Just taking them all the way around, hovering a centimetre off the ground. And exhaling to come up to the center point. I've got this towel in my way again. It's always something in the way. Taking an inhale up and over and an exhale to circle those arms around with control. Finding that stability through the spine as we do so. If you want to, you can take those feet up to a tabletop position. Really take control of that core as the arms come back. And circle around. Inhale nice and long. And exhale to sweep back to center and then taking it the other way. Inhaling down to hips. And this time exhaling to press up. Inhaling, taking those arms wide. Exhale to come back up to center. One more time. And the next time we go, we're going to come into a roll up. So take those feet down. And then as the arms come up and over, we're going to take those arms forwards. We're going to lift from the sternum. We're going to roll into those ribs and take a little curl up. And then we're going to roll back down again with control. Circle those arms and go again. As the arms come forwards, we're lifting from the sternum. We're rolling under the ribs and we're reaching forwards to find that core connection. And then rolling back. And if you feel like from this position, you can go into a full curl up. Oh, I'm knocking into my weights. And come to sitting, then do. Otherwise, just keep going into that upper abdominals. Coming down, sweeping those arms around, but trying not to use the momentum of them. Bring them up and over, reach forward, curling up, finding that connection under the ribs to come up into a roll up. Coming back with control if you're coming all the way up. And then bringing those arms up and over one more time, squeezing under those ribs. Find that lift of the sternum. And rolling up if you can. If you can't, then just take a little stretch and then bring yourself up to sitting. And we're just going to pop that towel down behind us just to open up through that thoracic area again and through the upper chest and upper spine, just like we did last week. So taking yourself back towards the mat with control. Take those forearms down if you need to. The towel is quite nice. You can just adjust it here. But try and make sure if you need it that your head is on the other end. So we've got length through the spine, control through the lower spine. Take those arms out to the side and just hug the towel with those shoulder blades, turning the palms of the hands up towards the ceiling. Just watch your knees here. Make sure that they're not buckling in towards one another. We've still got stability through the lower body. And just take some really nice controlled breaths here. Enjoying that feeling of opening out through the chest, through the upper spine, where lots of us are so tight. And then we're going to come back up to sitting. So again, if a roll up suits you, you can take those arms up to the ceiling. Use that towel as that reference to really roll your ribs into, lift that sternum to come all the way up to sitting. If it's not good for you, just take that little crunch under the ribs and then push yourself up using your hands. And we're going to come into our spine twist, progressing to saw. So we're going to come into a wide leg position. Don't take it too wide, but just abduct those legs slightly. If you find it hard to sit up tall on those on the sit bones, if you find it too much on the hip flexors, you can always do this exercise either kneeling or seated on a kitchen chair. We're going to take the arms out to the side, and with an exhale, we're going to twist over to one side, taking that back arm as far as we can. If you're on a kitchen chair, you'll need to just take those hands in front of you into that cathedral position we did in week 1, just so you've not got that arm catching behind you. Inhaling to the front and exhaling to the other side. And again, taking that spine twist. Seeing if you can get that back arm a little bit further if you're seated or kneeling. And if you're comfortable with this, then you can start to progress to a saw. So we take that exhale and twist. We reach our little finger down and towards our toes. Back arm, the thumb goes down towards the floor, and we lift that arm and lower the front arm as we pulse 1, 2, 3, working into those obliques. Coming to center. Exhale, going towards the other side. So front thumb comes up, back thumb comes down. And we want to find that lift of the back arm as we fold into those obliques. And coming to the front. So we're using that shoulder mobility to work the waist muscles a little bit harder. We can just reach, or we can really lift that back arm to get that extra engagement. So twisting to the side, front thumb up, back thumb down, and find that lift of the upper arm as you fold. Coming to center one more time if you can. If it's getting a little bit much, then feel free to take a break or just take it back to that spine twist. And then drawing those legs in towards you, taking an inhale with an exhale, coming into a spine stretch. So taking a little fold from the hips rather than drawing forward from the shoulders. Try and really push the sternum towards the opposite side of the room. Find a big fold through the hips. Bend the knees if you're tight through the hamstrings, or extend those legs if you want to. And really reach the crown of the head towards the opposite wall. And when you're here, take a little scoop of those tummy muscles back towards the back of the t-shirt. Take an inhale. That's going to give you a really lovely stretch through the back. And with an exhale, begin to round back up again, finding that scoop, finding that connection through the whole of the spine. Fantastic. We're going to swing our legs around now to come to 4-point kneeling. I'm going to move that towel right out of the way. And we're going to come to 4-point kneeling. And we're going to come into our knee hover. So if you're happy staying in a knee hover, then stay with a little 1 centimeter hover of the knees. If you feel like you can progress this to a plank or a leg pull prone position, then you're very welcome to do so and just step back, as long as you can maintain the same height through the back and through the bottom. If the bottom has to lift or the core drops in order to get into that position, then take it back to knee hover. So we've got our arms, our elbow crease facing the front of the front of the room. Our fingers are nice and wide, length through the spine, strong through the core. Tuck those toes under, and with an exhale, we're going to hover those knees. And just staying here and taking a few breaths. Feel that core connection. Push that floor away, taking it from the core. Try not to push through the shoulders. Push from the tummy muscles. Find that balance. And then take those knees back with control. Push back. Either take it into a nice child's pose, rounding through the back. Or if you want to take a little bit of mobility through those wrists, then do. And then we're going to go through another set. So we're going to take our tabletop position. And this is where, if you want to progress it to full leg pull prone position, you can. If not, stick with those knee hovers. The toes are tucking under. We're taking an exhale just to come up onto the toes. Knees are just hovering off the floor. Connect that core. And if you feel like keeping the back absolutely steady, you can step back into a leg pull prone. Then do. Don't let those shoulders come up. Keep pushing the floor away. Keep engaging the core. And see if you're here, if you can just take an extra lengthen from the heels. Push them one way. Push the crown of the head the other way. Find length through the spine. And then whatever position you're in, just slowly and carefully come back out of it. Take an inhale into a child's pose. Exhale to come back up to 4-point kneeling. And we're going to go into a thread the needle stretch. So take a nice big inhale to reach high towards the ceiling. Exhale, thread that arm underneath, taking the shoulder down towards the floor. And finding a stretch across the back of the shoulder blade. Use your inhale to reach right up. And your exhale to thread under and bring that shoulder low. See if you can get that head and shoulder all the way down towards the floor. Don't worry if you can't, just work with the range of motion that suits you. One more time, inhaling up. Exhaling to find that twist and that stretch. And then inhaling all the way up. Coming round onto our hips, ready for our side bend. We're going to come to our forearms for our side bend, and we want to imagine that we're pulling our ribs away from the floor. So make sure that shoulder is directly on top of the elbow. Make sure the hips are facing the front of the room. We're scooping those ribs away from the floor, and we're taking an exhale to fold over, taking the arm up and over if shoulder mobility allows, keeping that waist drawn away from the floor as we inhale back. And we have the option to begin to lift the hip through our side bend, but only if we're going through the ribs first and then up into the hips. It might be that if you're coming up, that you would rather have those legs a little bit longer. See what feels right for you. But if you're lifting those hips, come up into the ribs first and then feel that side bend, that lateral flexion of the spine coming all the way down towards the hip area. So ribs first, then hips. If you want to make this even more challenging, keep those ribs lifted, hover those hips up, and then hover them down towards the floor, just 1 centimetre off, and then lifting back up, keeping those ribs lifted throughout. Whatever position you're going through, whatever level you're working at, just go for 1 more breath. And then folding up. Just take a little stretch in the opposite direction. Just easing out through that side that's just worked hard to pull away from the floor. And then we're going to go round to the other side. So you can stay facing the same way and just go onto the other arm. I'm going to turn around so you can see. So we're going back into 4-point kneeling, ready for our thread the needle. We're taking an inhale up with that left arm, exhaling to bring that shoulder down towards the ground. Inhaling up and exhaling, threading that arm under, taking the shoulder down, seeing if you can ease right down. Take the head and shoulder all the way if you can. Don't worry if you can't, just work through the range of motion that suits you. If you can get that head and shoulder all the way down, it might feel nice just to get all the way down there and relax into a few breaths. And then make this the final big inhale up. Bringing those hips around towards the front, ready for our side bend. So coming down towards the floor, onto that forearm, shoulder is directly over elbow. Hips are facing the front. It's easier to have the hips sort of facing diagonally in this exercise. Try and make sure those knees are stacked. feet are stacked. Take an inhale, pull those ribs away from the floor, and then exhale, folding over. Lift those ribs, find that spine flexion. Inhale up, exhale up and over. Keep pushing that floor away with the forearm. Try not to let that shoulder come up towards the ear. Find that distance between the waist and the mat. And again, if you feel like you can really pull those ribs away and that can extend into the hip area, then you can take a hover of those hips. I'm going to take my legs slightly longer to lift my hips. So find that length, find that space, and go into that hip lift. Keep those hips facing the front of the room. Focus on taking those ribs up first and then working into those hips. And again, you can take those hips high and then keep those ribs there and just hover that hip above the floor before coming up again. If you want to extend and challenge yourself, one more breath. And then pushing yourself all the way up and over into that side bend. And then we're just going to finish with swimming and a little cobra stretch. So we're coming all the way down to front lying for our swimming. Exactly the same as we did last week, but really trying to get that connection through those upper back extensors. So we want to be working these muscles in between these shoulder blades here. So find that really strong extension through that upper back, keeping control of this midsection as you do so. So all the way down to the mat. Arms are forwards, legs are extended. Take length from the crown of the head all the way to the toes and scoop the tummy muscles away from the floor. Forehead comes all the way down to the mat. I'm going to keep mine lifted because I'm talking. But as we exhale, we're going to take that right arm up, left leg up. Inhale to come down. Exhale to go again. Other side. Alternating from side to side. And if you can take an upper body lift, then do. If you're lifting that upper body, try and lead with the arm, not with the head. So the arm should be that highest point. And really bring that arm as high as you can to work into those upper back extensors. You can take this into a full swimming exercise if you like. I think it's really nice to keep one arm down just to find that connection from one side of the body to the other. And use those long breaths to find that extra lift. And if you want to challenge yourself, slow down. Find that extra 1 millimeter of the movement just to exaggerate it. And then bringing those hands up towards the head. Elbows are underneath shoulders. Take an inhale and with an exhale, press those forearms into the mat, scoop the tummy button and find that lift through the upper body. And inhale to come down. Exhale and lift. Find that lift from the sternum here. Inhale to come down. And again, if you're comfortable with this, You can keep pushing into those arms. Don't let the shoulders lift. Push into the hands and find that full stretch. Keep it to the smaller range of motion if that's better for you. And whichever point you're working at, really try and find that control through the lower back and that lift through the upper body. And if you're in that full extension, you can just go for some little dips here. Keep that extension through the upper back. Work into those arms for 3. Don't let that tummy dip. 2, 1. Oh, coming all the way down. Pushing yourself back into a child's pose. Taking a really nice big deep breath here. Just easing out through that upper back that's just worked into extension. Taking it in the opposite direction. And then swing those legs around when you're ready. Come to seated. And again, you can either have those feet crossed, or you can have them straight out in front of you or bent. Just find a position that's comfortable for you to sit tall on the sit bones. Find the length through the spine. I'm going to take an inhale to take both arms up. And then keep going to bend one arm. Taking the palm of the hand in between the shoulder blades and just take a stretch into that tricep. If it's a little bit much for you to take that arm all the way up and over, you can take that hand to the shoulder and just lift here to get the same stretch. And then taking those arms down and going to the other side. So taking that inhale up, arm comes all the way over, bending at the elbow, taking the palm of the hand between the shoulder blades if we can, and just easing that hand, easing that elbow over, taking that lovely stretch. Again, if it's too much, bring the hand to the same shoulder and just lift up the elbow. Taking a nice big inhale up. Exhale, coming down. One more time. Nice and long through the body, tall through the spine. Inhaling up. Exhaling to press down. And just take a couple of shoulder shrugs in one direction and a couple in the other direction. Easing out after all that hard work. Have a little shake out and you're all done for today. Well done. That was a really tough class. Hopefully I'll see you next week for our 5th one in our series for the first block this year. And we're going to be looking at coordination of the body and that mind-body connection. So lots of coordination exercises next week. So hopefully see you there. Thanks for joining. Bye.